Welcome, weary hero! Come in and pull up a chair by the fireplace. Grab and enjoy a tankard or two of your favorite brew. Listen to your fellow Nephalem trade stories of their journeys throughout Sanctuary. Welcome, hero, to the Scythe and Shield.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Scythe and Shield Rebirth. It's been a few weeks. I have a voice. It's amazing. I could talk again. Or maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. We'll figure this out. Come join me on this adventure. Anyways, this week's guest is a master theory crafter, a wonderful wizard, and a deep friend and my Euro connection. My second Euro connection. I must be Enkeria. I love you. But yes, sVr, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Doing well. I'm happy this works out finally on the second attempt.
Yes. Maybe I'll keep that one. Maybe I'll work that one in. Maybe I won't. Who knows? Depends how lazy I am. This has to get up tomorrow. So how are you? Besides being probably tired and 6 hours ahead of recording my time.
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. for me on a Sunday, so tomorrow is Monday, which means work day, which means, how well is one doing on, it's like, this will take, I'm not sure, maybe 2 hours, and then it's 6 hours of sleep, and then it's Monday. So, besides that one, I'm doing pretty well, I would say.
Okay. I'm sorry. No. No. Everything's going well here. I'm on that classic train hard. WoWland has gotten me back.
Yeah, a lot of people are playing WoW.
Yeah.
Never touched WoW, never will, but I do see a lot of people grind WoW pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy your time so far?
Oh yeah, I got 57 last night. 3 away from the big 60.
Mm-hmm.
God, I forgot how long the grind was those last 10 levels. It's like, yeah, it is what it is. But no, it's fun doing all the things. I forgot how much it was actually to do in that game. Like from professions to leveling to the long chain quest to your reputations, is anything and everything you can do. And I'm in Drop-a-Deuce's guild, so that's been good. It's been.
I didn't even know that Dropper has been playing WoW as well. I know that Zanji has been playing quite a bit, and I've been lurking around in his stream.
Yeah.
Besides that one.
Yeah.
Like, my Twitter has been full of WoW lately. Last couple of 3-4 weeks.
I think for a lot of people, Classic was the remedy for taking a break from Diablo. Like, they're doing good things with Diablo, but it's like, need a break. Need something completely different in a sense. Like, not running around. Like, a Veer's Wizard. Go in, smash everything. Don't have to worry about dying. Playing a mage, and wow, unless you're doing the AoE spec, you aggro 2 mobs, you're dead. So it's almost the complete opposite.
Really? Oh.
But it is what it is. It's fun, it's grindy, separates the men from the boys. It's all fun. So, anything else going on? Any other things, or just, oh god, Monday tomorrow?
A goddamn Monday tomorrow. I know. So I've been playing a little bit on NA servers in Diablo 3. Usually never really played NA. I was leveling some characters up, just for the very improbable and nearly impossible case of me just maybe streaming from BlizzCon, if that might happen, if at all. Then obviously I can't really play European servers because convention center internet, and then West Coast, and then connection to Europe. I'm playing EU with like 400 or 500 ping. That would be terrible. So I just quickly leveled a barbarian and a monk on NA. So in case of the possibility of a stream, I'll definitely do an IRL stream, at least one, I guess, maybe two. We'll see. Similar to last year. But if I get to stream from the convention, it usually means that somebody else can't. I mean, somebody couldn't make it, or he had to cancel last minute, I guess. That's what would happen in that case. So it's just a contingency plan, essentially. So that's what I did. Besides that one, yeah, I played Season 18 for the last 4 weeks. Or 5 weeks, I should say. And the first 4 weeks were the solo cell-phone season. And I grinded that one out pretty heavily. And I finished rank 1 with a 131 clear on the wizard. So I'm happy about that one.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Besides that one, no, not much has been happening. I'm waiting for a PTR announcement. If we get a PTR, it should be time soon. So I'm kind of waiting for that one. We'll see what the next 2 weeks bring. And elsewise, like the BlizzCon hype has been creeping up slowly.
30
more days. 30
days.
Ay. So yeah, it's been creeping up a bit. So that's what has been happening for me lately.
All right. Well, all good to know. Let's not go too much deeper, because some of that will creep into conversations as we go along. So with that, we'll move on to the first segment.
Hail Nephalem.
All right. So, for the people listening out there, you know the deal. This is where we get to know a little bit more about the person, where they came from, and what they hope for, and all that kind of fun stuff. So the first question, as always, is where does your name come from?
Oh, like SVR? Like my nickname? Oh, that's a terrible story. Alright, so it was back in the days of LAN parties. Which was actually fairly popular, at least in my region. So I was like 12, 13, or 14 years old. Like, rough ballpark. And back in the days, we did play a lot of like Warcraft 3, which was the custom map Dota, right? Which was Dota 1. We played that one quite a bit. We played some tower defense. A lot of Age of Empires 2, actually. And Counter-Strike 1.6 and 1.5, those were like the games that we played a lot, right? And at some point, like I think it was in Age of Empires 2, where you have to select a nickname, right? And I'm like, wait, I don't really have a nickname. And what I did is I just tapped into Winamp and decided, well, the song that is playing right now, that will be my nickname. And it was the song from Nirvana named Sliver. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's Sliver.
Yeah, Sliver.
Right? Yeah, Sliver, right? And I was listening to that song at that point, and I'm like, I guess that's my nickname. So I selected that nickname and sticked with that one for at least like roughly a year, I would say. And then what happened is people started to like randomly capitalize letters in their nicknames, right? So it was like, I don't know, like Big Destroyer, and it would be like Big O, small Y, Big E, and so on, right? Like people would randomly capitalize. So I did the same, right? So I had like small S, big L, small E, and so on, right? And everything. And there was a big V in there, as you can guess, right? And turns out that really helped with popularity in high school. Like the next day, after capitalization my nickname, I was suddenly one of the popular guys. So that really helped. And a couple of, like, I would say 1 year later, we were like 17, 18. That's when people started to like randomly remove some letters from the nicknames, and I dropped a couple, and we ended up with SVR. So that's kind of the story of the nickname. It started all with a song from Nirvana and went through 2 iterations to what we have today. And the 90 is just, since SVR is very short and a lot of handles require you to have at least 4 letters. For instance, I think Twitter requires you to have at least 4 letters. You're not allowed to have only 3 letters. It's the same with Twitch. So you got to add a couple of things, and usually just add the 90, which is one birth of year, and that's it.
That's like a history lesson in handles from like
Yeah.
back in the day. It's like the only thing you're missing is like the triple X in the beginning and the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've done
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We had a lot of people with the triple X in there also, like prefix and suffix. Good times. Good times.
it's like triple X, the big dick. Triple X. I was like,
Yes.
whoa.
Yes.
Hold on there, big fella.
It's exactly how it was. I had a couple of those friends, yeah. I at least didn't do the XXX thing, so I somehow managed to not do that one, but I did the random capitalizations and randomly dropping letters. So that's the story of how SVR came upon us.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Moving along. How old are you? And what's your profession or work or study? Broad terms.
Yeah. I mean, it's sVr90, right? So
I don't know.
kind of obvious. Like according to Twitch chat, when Twitch chat was asking, somebody in Twitch chat was asking me like, "How old are you?" And I said, "Well, it's sVr90. So what do you think?" And people were like, "He's 90." Like, no, I'm not 90 years old, right?
Like, oh,
So
you trolls.
Twitch chat, like every single damn year, I'm 90 years old. No, I'm 29, so it's kind of obvious one, I guess. And for living, I write Python codes. I write Python code on a daily basis, and that's what I do.
That's good. Makes not to go off. Well, no, it's not off topic. Well, maybe kind of, sort of. But it's like one of those things. Like every time I'm just watching your stream on the side, whether it's at work, in the office, or at home, or playing a game on the desktop. And you go into like the Wolf Alpha, and you start doing all the formulas, all the parentheses and everything, and start doing all the multipliers as like an answer to someone. It's like, okay, this multiplier, this multiplier, this multiplier, and doing all the parentheses, I'm like, see, this is why I don't theorocraft for this game, because I can't do this shit. I don't understand how to do any of this. So I guess skills translate one way or another. Whether it's something you like to do and just happen to work for your job, or vice versa, or both, because one could translate in positive feedback loops. We're all about positivity, right? Something like that. All right. So next question is, what was your first time playing Diablo? And was that because of anyone in particular, or just yourself, so to speak? So it's kind of like a double question, so to speak.
Yeah. So I never heard of Diablo, and I never played Diablo before. It's like, I think 14 years old. It's really hard to have like a concrete timeline here. I'm not 100% sure, but let's say I was 14 years old, and it was actually my best friend back in the days who bought a PC games blah 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 magazine, right? And they were like, back in the days, were like CDs included, and it would come with like free game copies, right?
Oh, those days.
And
those days.
This one actually had Diablo 2 in there as a free game copy. So he ended up installing it and playing it, and at some point, I'm not sure when, I was at his house, right at his place, and he's like, "Dude, I have this new game, it's fucking amazing," and well, then he showed to me Diablo 2, which was without a lot of destruction, and and then we'd take turns playing the game, essentially. And I'm not sure what we started. I think we played Barbarian first. I'm pretty sure we played Barbarian first. And we got deleted. Usually we got good enough through Act 1, but Act 2, at least like the spiders that not the spiders, the scorpions or whatever they are, when you kill them, the scarabs. Those are scarabs. When you kill them, they have like the electrocute. It would always wreck us. So that was essentially that end, and I really liked the game, so I asked my dad, "Hey, I want to have Diablo 2," and he bought Diablo 2 for me with a lot of destruction, I believe. And or later on with a lot of destruction at some point. And I actually never finished the game. I never got to the point. I never got past Duriel. Like, Duriel was always the end boss. I've never seen anything past Duriel. And no matter how many characters I created, no matter how many bodies I threw at Duriel, I would just never get past Duriel. He was like a brick wall to me when I was 14 or 15 years old. I picked up the game again when I was 17. And I was like, all right, let's try this again. And this time, let's maybe follow a build guide and see what you need to do, right? And it was the first time I actually got past Burial. And then I went ahead and, slayed Diablo, and after it's Baal. And then I noticed there's a different difficulty afterwards. And then I played Diablo 2 for quite some time. I really enjoyed it. So it was a good time. That's the first time I really touched Diablo. I wouldn't say that I've been playing a lot in my free time of other games. It was just always Diablo, and once in a while, like the LAN parties where we played, like Dota and tower defense and all that stuff. So that was me and Diablo. So that was my story. So I got into the game.
Nice.
Yeah. And people always ask me, like, why is it Wizard? Why are you so fond of the Wizard, right? And I'm like, well, imagine being a 16-year-old boy and you have the character selection screen. What do you think? What would you select, huh? It's like, you go over every character. What does a 16-year-old boy pick? Like, he picks the Wizard. So the Sorcerer at that point. Yeah, so that's why I started playing Sword, and it stuck with me in Diablo 3. It's always been Wizard, and probably always will be. I think the worst thing that can happen to me, and I think I've talked with this about this with my chat already, is like, what happens if Diablo 4 comes eventually, and they present the classes, and there is no Wizard or Sorcerer. It's like, there's this one guy from back. He's just screaming, "No!" That will be me. That will be me. So,
well, I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Yeah,
Wizard sorcerers are pretty much mainstays.
Right? You
pesky
can't make an RPG without them. Let's be real.
That pesky Necro could go the way of the Dodo Bird, though.
The game sucks if there is no Wizard in there. It has to be in there. So.
The Necro can take a hike for a little bit. I'm sorry, Nineball. I know, but that's how I feel.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. Nice to know we're on the same page. That's always a good thing. Moving along. What's your biggest hope for the franchise? Not like, Diablo 3 or anything like that, but just the franchise in general, moving forward.
So ARPGs or Diablo?
Well, the Diablo franchise.
Okay, the Diablo franchise. I see. I mean, eventually, obviously, I really want the next game. Right? Let me specify it. The next non-mobile game. Like, I really want that one. Eventually, it shall happen. I'm not sure if it happens this year or next year, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's still a lot of things you can do in Diablo 3. Even though Diablo 3, has come of age, essentially. The game still feels like, at least the engine itself and the way it plays, it is still very modern. It does not feel like a very old game to play, at least, user interface and the way the engine works and gameplay. It still feels very modern. So that's something I really like about Diablo. I think there are a couple of systems in the game that might need some changing or could use some changes. So I feel there's still a lot of things you could do in D3. The question is if those happen. If I could decide whether or not we get the next gen Diablo, which is not mobile, or more patches and expansions for D3, I'd probably go with the next game. So moving on, I would say, it's it always feels so weird to say because everybody's like D4 when it doesn't happen, and everybody last year was already like D4. But yes, that's essentially what I'm looking forward to, and I'd rather not have severe changes to D3 anymore, even though I believe there are some things you could do. Essentially my way of telling Blizzard, if we don't get D4 soon, or an announcement soon, then hopefully there's some law for D3 in the next couple of months or years. So that's what I have to say on that end.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts on that as well. I mean, it just feels weird because that gap, that like year plus of like where there was no patches.
Mm-hmm.
Like if everything that they were able to do after that was done in that time frame, like if everything we had like a year ago and we didn't have that gap, how much further in the updating of systems and further along in the quality of life adjustments, further along in new sets that they've said and new legendary items and possibly changes to current systems would we be. I went into this a lot with I think it was Drop specifically last show, and like I went through like all of Diablo 3's development and then Rebirthed Souls and then everything that's kind of happened since then, which some of it is hearsay, some of it is more or less known and taken as kind of like theory, like we take it as more or less truth, but we don't know 100% for certain, and there are some things that we just know are true. And it just seems like Diablo's whole development cycle, whether it's Diablo 2 into Lord of Destruction or Diablo 3 into Rebirthed Souls or the expansion or the supposed second expansion that got canceled, and then all the turmoil with the first iteration, the over-the-shoulder version of Diablo 4 versus being canceled, and hopefully what we're getting a true isometric version for Diablo 4. It just seems like development is always in turmoil, and it always seems to always be in flux, which, to be honest, that may actually be how development is. I mean, you're a Python code developer, so you're more apt than I would be, and probably closer to what the developers of Blizzard experience, where if you're trying to do a project, you're developing code, if things work out, they work out. If they don't, you have to figure out a different way of doing things. And that just may be the nature of the beast. We just, as players from the outside who have very little knowledge of what they're doing, it just seems like, oh, they can't get their act together, or they're switching their minds, or someone at the corporate levels pulling the strings. But it's still hard to have that little bird, that little mental bird pecking at the back of your mind going, don't give in to the hype yet. Wait and see. We don't know how this is gonna turn out. Because there's a part of me that's going like, I want to be hyped for this, but it's like layers of decisions. It's like, okay, they announced D4. Okay, that's great. What is it? Okay, what they show us looks good. How does that? Is there a demo? How does it actually play? It's like all these like stupid little mental checks, and I'm wondering, is that like just a sign of the times that we live in, or is that just us being really just jaded with this franchise?
It's probably us just being very much too passionate, and being very bad at expectation management, I would say. At least, I mean, yeah, there's always like this, at least in the community. Community very often likes to say that the devs are disconnected, right? It's like one of the most common statements that you will hear, not only in the Diablo universe, and not only like us players and Team 3, which is I believe the Diablo team at Blizzard.
Yep.
So it's also in other games, right, where people will always say like, wow, the devs are very much disconnected from the player base, right? But this is a very, very, very common complaint. For me personally, since you talked about the developer side, so yes, I do write Python code. Yes, I do maintain a library or an API at work, and other Python code writers, other programmers are using this API to write client code essentially. So very often I have colleagues come up to me and tell me the following things about this API is incorrect, or this should be different. And then I also always suggest a solution, right? And I think this is a very common thing you see for us players. What players do is we will also notice something that is incorrect, and then afterwards always have an implicit idea of a solution that you could, an action you could take that seems fairly easy. It's like, so they should probably do the following because X seems pretty easy to do, hence they should do it, right? This is like a very common thing that people do say, that players say, and that also like colleagues of mine would say. Here's the deal though. I feel like players, or generally speaking users, 90% of the time, they are correct with pointing out issues. If a user has an issue and he's pointing out that issue, 90% of the time that issue is always correct. Whether you like it as a dev or not, it is correct.
Mm-hmm.
But what the user has to understand is that 90% of the time, the user is incorrect about his solution. And that is also just a straight up fact. This is essentially always true. And I feel every single time when we as a player base complain about specific things, we should really very specifically always focus on the issue and explain why the issue arises, what is bad about the issue, and only in a few sentences maybe give an outlook on a solution. And I feel it's a very common problem in our community that people like to very briefly talk about issues and how issues arise, but they go into like explicit lengths about talking about solutions. However, talking about solutions really does not help developers. There's a lot of things in the background. There's an entire ecosystem to take care of in the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the user can't really see behind the curtains. Hence, I would say every single time, and I think it's a very popular thing in online games or in online gaming communities, that a lot of theory crafters or a lot of public community persons have solutions for problems, and they really like to make like nice graphics over photo solutions, make a very good video of those solutions,
Mm-hmm.
and present those solutions in a very eloquent, strong, and very reasonable way. And those solutions or those ideas very often get a very good traction within the community. However, the solution itself does not really help a lot. What really, really, really helps is a very good description of the issue, explaining why the issue arises, what are the consequences, and so on. And I feel that is something that very commonly happens, especially in Diablo, where people like to talk too much about solutions and too less about the issues and why it is the way they feel that way. So that's what I have to say on the entirety of user and developer interaction, which is essentially sharing part of my life here. It happens quite frequently, I have to say. It happens quite frequently. So I feel like at least once or twice a week there is a longer coffee break where I try to focus on issues and not on solutions. Because solutions on the long end is my work, and not the work of my colleagues directly. So that's some insight on that point of view. I'm not sure if that actually answered the question.
No. Well, we kind of.
Yeah, we kind of lost.
We took the windy road after that one.
Yes.
But it's fine, and I'm totally guilty of that whole long, solutions thing. Like,
I feel like every single time when you think you're talking about solutions, you should always take a step back and think if you describe the issue at first, like, thoroughly enough. It's fine to have, like, strong opinions and creative ideas, but they are essentially worthless if the issue is not clear or clear enough very often.
Well,
it's a very common thing in the PTR forums. Like, if you look into the PTR forums at any patch, you'll see people say something like, "This item sucks. It is too weak. Here are 10 solutions." They have like solution A, B, C, D, E, F, and they analyze all of them.
It's like, why does it suck? Please at least give a half-witty answer on why it sucks. But no, it is like that because when I did the Dev Hell article, 2.5 months before my kid was. I took 2.5 months to do it before my kid was born. You know, one of the last things I decided to do with the last time that I would, you know, theoretically not have a third party in the family to worry about. It was hard because I would write sections and I kept on, and then I would have to like mentally tell myself I'm putting too much of myself into this. Even though I'm doing this is my article, and it's from my perspective and my ideas. I had to like rid at least the emotional aspect of it out. So I can't tell you how many times throughout writing it and rewriting sections and then doing the UI elements, and then the way I did the UI elements changed from how I thought the systems would work in-game in my head when I wrote the section versus how I had to make it as simple as possible in the UI mock-ups, how that actually fed back, and how I had to actually redo my written solutions to make it actually coalesce. It was almost like I was almost iterating my own ideas, and like there were certain sections in that like I had to reiterate 4 or 5 different times because of like, this is pretty but it doesn't convey anything at all. All right, this is better, but it's more pretty than function. And then I'm like, okay, this is functional, but this is too much. Like, kept on like stripping it down, and like it may not have looked pretty, but when I looked at the final version of what the idea came up versus the initial one, like just on sight you knew exactly what was being conveyed on the last one. And that takes a heavy amount of self-evaluation and a lot of focusing on what the problem is, exactly what you say. It's like I knew that what I had was still a problem, so I had to go over it and go over it and go over it. And I feel that's really important because it basically lends to what you touched on, and what I feel is just a problem in general is there's just a lack of critical thinking, analyzing and annotating what the problem is versus just, you know, throw it out to the social media whims of like, just do this. And I think that's more or less what you touched on. So, and I found a relic. I found
a relic.
I thought I lost it because I don't have a digital version of it anymore, so I have to like scan this before I lose it again. I have beta patch 10 Diablo 3 write-up report from when I was running that website. And oh god, like just reading it, I'm just reminded like how much the game has changed since then.
It was a long time ago. It's over 5 years ago. No, it's even longer. It's 7 years ago. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm old.
It's like 7. It's like almost like 8 technically. I think maybe. Or
yeah, December 2011 is when the beta started. Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Great. So, with that tangent, let's move on. Let's mosey, mosey. All right. So this is where we start talking a little bit more about, you know, on the World Wide Web, the internets, the Twitters, all that fun stuff.
Oh Lord.
So, what got you into community work?
Oh, it got me into community work.
You know, community. Yeah. I guess if you've done community work before Diablo, or if it's just about Diablo, either order.
Something like my in-depth analysis posts, something like this, like theory crafting work.
Yeah, like theory crafting, and also, you know, what led you to actually build your sVr streaming community, all kind of fun stuff.
I see. So if I could have, I would have started streaming earlier. And I would have probably started to stream in season 5, but it would have been probably like the very first season that I really played competitively and quite a bit. Season 6 probably a bit more, and Season 7 by far the most. So like my most free active seasons, and I would have probably started streaming in Season 5. I learned a lot in Season 5 about how the game works and how mechanics in this game work. I was fortunate to meet the right players who taught me well, who gave me the right mindset of how to test things, and a very, very good teachers essentially. And I kept going essentially. I kept going with trying to figure out stuff and figure out builds and optimize them, and also obviously a lot of testing. I think my very first theory crafting contribution was in Season 6. Was in the middle of Season 6 when Twister was the #1 build, and I contributed a slightly stronger setup of Twister Wizard, which was the Archon Zodiac crossover. That's the very first time I was noticed for a theory crafting contribution. That build was able to clear roughly 12 tiers higher, so we were pushing 116s, 117s at that point in the season, which was like 6 weeks into the season. And then I had a very fortunate foreman group that would trust in the ability of the build, and they would trust that it would actually better what everybody else is playing. It was actually hard to assemble those 4 people. A lot of times I was actually getting kicked from games for being an idiot and not knowing my shit because it's not what everybody's doing. So it was kind of hard to get those 4 people behind you. I have contacts to that group, by the way, so it's still in contact with those players. They are sitting in my Twitch channel on and off. And yeah, they trusted in the ability of the build, and we went ahead and got rank 1. And showed off the new builds, which was, I think it's commonly known as Archon Energy Twister from Season 6. That's how most people know it, what it goes by. We used to call it the ZET in our group, which stands for Zodiac Energy Twister, because the real idea there was, the Zodiac Wing opening up a lot of cooldown rolls for area damage, and then you would attack an Archon for the burst damage. So the playstyle was very much different in how Season 6 used to play, and it was very refreshing for most people. And especially the non-seasonal players liked it quite a lot. And that was the very first time I did my in-depth Reddit post about theory crafting. And a lot of people liked it. And a lot of people have been reaching out to me afterwards in terms of mechanics and how stuff works in the game. And since I've been asked the same questions over and over again, like very often I would get the same questions, and I didn't want to answer them like all, in a text window. I was like, maybe I should start streaming, because that's one reason why one would stream, is to share knowledge and maybe to do theory crafting and to help out others, and just general purpose sharing knowledge essentially, which didn't work out at the beginning. I tried streaming, but I only had 1 Mbed upload. Turns out it was not good enough, 1 Mbed upload, to actually have a quality stream. So I streamed once or twice, and didn't work out too well. And there was not much I could do, because the house that I was living in did not have good internet. There was no good bandwidth connection, so I couldn't get an upgrade, which was very unfortunate. And then in 2017 in March, a water pipe bursted in the street, and so they had to turn off the water in the entire street. They had to dig up the street and fix that bursted pipe, and while doing so, they also immediately did new internet connection in the street.
Oh God!
So
so you're this isn't an insult. This is a compliment. That's so European. It's like, no, while we're doing it, we'll just upgrade the entire block's internet. Like, I could,
yes.
That would never happen oh, a sewer main broke in New York City. We're just gonna upgrade this entire block to Google Fiber. Like, no, that just. Jesus. Anyways, continue.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, we got a good internet suddenly. So all it took was one water pipe bursting in 2017.
It was a plan.
And,
It was an in
yeah.
job.
It was like I planned it. Yeah, I can confirm. And then on like end of June, they were done. And on the 1st of July, I actually got my new internet connection, which was a pretty nice deal. And that's when I started streaming. I started officially streaming on the 1st of July in 2017. And till then, I had like multiple Fury crafting contributions. For instance, Season 7 Fireplace Wizards was being created in the same group that did the Season 6 Fury craft. And there were a couple of other contributions, such as Struggle and Necro, a lot of Necro builds on beta, played a lot of PTRs, gave a lot of PTR feedback, and just general purpose Fury crafting and a lot of things. So that's what I've been doing. And when I started streaming it, actually, I was very surprised how quickly it picked up. So initially, like in the first couple of streams, I think I was very quickly past 10 viewers within the first week. I didn't expect my stream to get traction so quickly. And when I say traction, I mean something like sitting at 50 to 70 viewers average, which sounds trivial. But I would say for everybody that ever started or tried to start to stream, it's not as trivial as it sounds. It's actually kind of not easy to get a viewership around it that's constantly tuning in. So I was very surprised, and it was mostly the high-tier European community. Like every single time I would look into who's sitting in my chat, it was always like the same people, right? It was always like some high-end players from Europe that would sit there and watch and just ask questions.
They're like, give me your secrets. Help me get 5GR levels higher. I'll pay you.
Yeah, essentially. Without the I'll pay you, but yeah, essentially. So they were just curious, essentially, and they wanted just to stick around because I was playing with some of them on and off, right? And I guess I just tuned in because there was nobody else to watch that would do similar content, I guess. So that worked out pretty well, and then I think Blackshirt was the first one that actually threw me like a ridiculous host. And I was actually surprised at that point that Blackshirt knew my Reddit posts. I would have never expected that Blackshirt knew like those in-depth Fury crafting posts that I did. But it turns out he did knew them, and the same with Riker and so on. So those guys, for some reasons, started to host me. They were like, hey, we love your Reddit posts. We love the contributions that you do. Thank you for the work. And that was kind of mind-blowing to me because I never expected it to happen. I just wanted to do my own thing, right? And suddenly there were like people backing me, like other community members essentially, who were backing me and hosting me. And it got big pretty quickly. So fast forward September or October, and I was sitting at like 100 viewers average, right, roughly, maybe a bit more. And then fast forward once again 2 months, and suddenly I'm partnered. So that went pretty quickly. Started on 1st of July streaming and got partnered on 6th of December. So roughly 5 months. Which was a very, very fast partnership, at least for, I would say, for Diablo 3. It's not easy to get a stable viewership around you. Right. So that worked well, but it would have not been possible without the help of the community. So it wouldn't not been possible with all the partners, all the other guys hosting me and helping me out. Diablo 3 is a very warm community. That's what I learned pretty quickly. Like, prior to streaming, I never really watched Twitch that much. I wasn't really a big viewer. The first stream that I really got into and that I really started watching was when I started streaming myself, or a few weeks prior to starting myself was Zanji and Leviathan. And I've been watching those guys like religiously before starting to stream. I would say I mostly looked how they dealt with certain things, like inappropriate viewers, for instance, inappropriate comments about, I don't know, like unpopular topics, right? Yeah. And I think I learned a lot from that one, from just passively watching. And was, I guess, learning from that one, right? It's like taking an exam, but in prior you get to take a glimpse at how other people have to write that exam, right? So that was pretty nice. That also really helped. And yeah, that's how I got into community work. And that's why I started streaming. And that's why I continue to stream. It's mostly just for sharing good builds, sharing knowledge, and hoping that whatever is the best builds or whatever is best is being played properly. And if it's not the best, then figuring out what's best. So yeah, I'm always chasing the perfect meta setups essentially, to either like speed grind or push or whatever, and sharing the knowledge about it. That's my main focus. I don't really care too much about like making daily YouTube videos or making like any YouTube videos essentially. I'm more about the fury and about the gameplay behind it. So how to execute it properly and how to play well on a high end. That's mostly what I like to do.
Noble work, or especially with our community, so it's appreciated. And the last question for this segment is, you've talked you've mentioned a few things about, you know, internet speed and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm sure you've had a few lessons along the way. And what would you say would be probably the biggest lesson for someone out there who may be listening that you can impart knowledge on them that you feel?
The biggest lesson, I feel like one of the biggest lessons is the community is overall very, very nice. There are some very strong adversarial voices that are not nice. If you are a community member, or if you try to be a public member of a community, it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't really matter if you do things correctly or incorrectly, either by your own metric or somebody's own opinion. There will always be this one person or a few people that will hate you. It will always happen. It's like, I don't like this guy. I hate his nose. Like, this will always happen, no matter what you do. Even if you do everything perfectly, or if you think you've done everything perfectly according to your own metric or somebody else's metric, doesn't really matter. You'll always have haters, essentially. And those will always be very strong and very strongly voiced and very adversarial. The people that actually like you, that enjoy your content, are like 90% of the time or 99% of the time lurkers. They're just silently enjoying your content, watching it, reading it. And they are not that expressive. So very often the negative voices will be much louder. So for anyone, so that was for me something that I was completely not aware of. Every single time I was confronted with an adversarial voice at the very beginning, I was always believing it would be my fault. Every single time. Like, I did something wrong. I've wronged this person in some way. And there must be something for me to learn from. And nowadays I would say that's incorrect. There are people that no matter what they say, there will always be an adversarial. There will always be against your content. And there is nothing for you to learn from. There just isn't. Even if you believe that you can, like, I strongly believe that you can, at any times, you can learn from failure, you can grow from failure. I think essentially programming is nothing than, finding 1,000 ways of not how to do it. And there are a couple of ways which work, and then you optimize those ways along the way. And like, that's essentially programming in a nutshell. And that's a hard lesson. It's a very hard lesson. It took me a long time. It took me, I would say, the majority, like over a year, to realize that there are certain people that I can't learn from, and that apparently I have wronged those people in some way, which will stay a mystery to me. and there's nothing I can do about it whatsoever. And I think that's a very valuable lesson. So at least to me, it was a very understanding. This was a very valuable lesson. And no matter what I do, there will be people voicing their opinions negatively very loudly. And that's it. And I can't do nothing but just shake my head and say, okay, thank you, and then moving on.
Yeah. It's weird to think about it, but inspirational quotes and everything that people have said, or just thrown out there. It's like, if nobody hates you, you're doing it wrong. Because because it's like,
interesting.
If everyone likes you, that means you're just appeasing everybody, which like
people pleaser.
It's like, then who are you? Or are you really you, or are you just like making sure everyone else is happy? It's kind of like that whole martyr versus victim archetype and all that kind of all that stuff you can go down. But it's like, no, throughout life you're gonna do things, whether it's streaming or helping a gaming community, helping a community of real life, or at work or wherever. You're gonna piss some people off, but that's just the nature of what life is. You are your own individual person. They are their individual person, and you may not coalesce all the way. And it's up to either one or both of you to understand that. And if you can come to terms, you come to terms. If not, well, hopefully there's a mutual go your own way, live your own life kind of deal. But yeah, there has to be some will there to at least understand that. I don't know what the hell that other person's problem is. I know I ain't gonna worry about it. I ain't gonna go after them for it. I'm just gonna do what I do. And yeah, that's a good lesson.
I think there's also I was watching some streamer, I'm not sure, so it was not a Diablo streamer, I'm pretty certain. I think it might have been in Path of Exile. I don't want to, it might have been Zizaran or Nugi, I can't recall, but essentially they were talking about a similar topic. About I don't want to say haters, but just very strong negative voices, right, in the community. And that specific streamer actually opened a tweet from Jim Carrey, and essentially it was the following. There was person A, just a random person on Twitter, and he said the following: "Oh my God, guys, how do you even sleep at night knowing somebody is hating you?" And then Jim Carrey answered to that one, preferably naked, such that they can kiss my ass while I sleep. I was like, that's actually a non-terrible mindset. Years ago, I would have, prior to 2017, I would have also been one of those worrying people, saying, oh my God, how do I sleep at night when there's this one person that I've done wrong and they are hating me? And nowadays, I'm also essentially Jim Carrey and saying, I guess that's one night that I'd sleep naked and make sure they can kiss my ass. That's on the other side of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Just, So that was a very good life lesson by a PoE streamer.
Yes.
I'm sure it was Noogie, but I'm pretty certain it was Noogie. It sounds very Noogie to me.
Mm-hmm. And that's how the cookie crumbles. By kissing my bare naked ass at night. No. Anyways, so with that, we conclude the first segment, and we will now move to the rapid fire. Don't try to think about it too much, especially you. I know you. Segment.
No thinking. Thinking. And A mode activated.
Quick fingers. Twitch reflexes. All right.
7 deadly sins.
Alrighty. So, like I said, 7 questions. Quick answers. No theory.
In A mode. No thinking.
See, I would try to be offended by that, but I'm not.
Because I know it's true.
Alright. First question: what's your favorite part of Gamescom?
The meeting viewers.
Okay.
Meeting viewers.
What's your favorite part of TwitchCon?
Oh, meeting peers and networking.
Okay. And drumroll, if you can't guess this one. What's your favorite part of BlizzCon?
Wow. Diablo news.
I pray for your soul at night. Next question. What would it take to perma-salvage Nestle?
For him to severely misstep.
Nothing fun?
Which... what would it take? I mean, there is no... So Nestle is Nestle rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the... Yeah. So he's perma-banned in a lot of Diablo channels. For very good reasons, I'm certain. I will not blame a single streamer in here that has Nestle rules banned in his channel. It is Nestle's fault. I get it. I think he can be very funny. He at least tries to very often. Personally, there are two ways of being a troll. There's the good way of being a troll, and there's the asshole way. He very often goes down the road of being the asshole. But so far, it was, at least to some extent, I could see the funniness in it, right? There's no, there's no way I would ban him without him misstepping. So there's no just, what would it take in terms of, hey, sVr, I will give you, I don't know, like a merchandise from Leviathan's stream on BlizzCon. Is that enough to ban Nestle? It's like, no, it's not enough. It's, Nestle gotta do it all by himself. Can't help him.
He has to let his inner asshole shine through. I get it.
Exactly, and then if it's ban worthy, I'll ban him. But there are only so few channels that he can type in, so kind of feel like the last resort. So
yeah. All right. Number 5. What is getting stolen, quote unquote, from 9ball this year at BlizzCon, and who is stealing it?
His virginity, and it's Leviathan. I'm sorry, Whitney. I didn't know what else to say.
I like it.
So sorry.
I like it. All right. In tradition, the 6th question revolves around Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is announced, and it is glorious. Leviathan and you are staring deep into each other's eyes. What are you both thinking?
I think no demon hunter, and he thinks no wizard.
I love it. Oh, that's perfect.
And we're both like nodding as if we think the same thing, even we totally don't.
I'm glad I put that question in. You went to 11 with that one. I like it. All right, last question. What's the favorite card that we've come up with for the Cards Against Diablo community?
Oh, my favorite one. All right, it involves a different community member, but I think it has so many great combinations, and it's the Lord Fluffy, the Face Off blank. And that is my favorite Cards Against Humanity card from the Diablo community. I think that will lead to a lot of very funny combos.
That's a tame one.
It's
I know the ones I came up with, like a bulk of them. I unleashed. I went totally unhinged to come up with them.
So yeah.
Although
I'll go with the Lord Fluffy one, the Face Off blank.
Although I just thought of a white card idea, basically involving wizards and circle jerking and high horsing. Yeah. Which hopefully, if we both get our act together, we'll actually have at BlizzCon. But that's for later discussions, as in maybe a minute. But that concludes this 7 Deadly Sins.
Hear ye, hear ye. Read all about it. The Burning Times.
And with that, we have arrived at the last segment. And as tradition, this is where I let the guest, if he or she wants to further discuss a topic involving the game, the community, development, or just wants to rant, or put a spotlight on something that needs a little bit more love in our community. This is where I open it up to them, and depending on how long that goes, maybe I'll have something else to talk about, but you know, time is precious, and yeah, sVr started, so we'll go with that. So
Alright.
is there
but-
anything you would like to talk about?
Let's just say no, because in this pretty overview it says if you do not have one in mind, which I do, but let's just say I don't, I'll have a backup topic for the section. So what's the backup topic? I'm fairly interested.
See, the problem is when you have a kid and you're going, oh crap, I have to do this in 4 hours. I didn't even do the quick fire questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, time gets away. so this is where I re-put the onus back on you. And it's
I
like,
see.
what do you
So
want to talk about?
Okay, so the backup topic is not don't get kids. All right, I get it. I get it.
It's
so-
what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom in all manners.
I do kind of have a topic. I think the topic that I would like to talk about is mainly due to the last official news that we got, which is the blog post. I'm sure you discussed it at some point with a guest at some point. You know, talking about, hey, you know, new sets in the future, new legendary effects in the future on items that are not used, and so on and so on.
Mhm.
So I'm obviously very pleasantly surprised by this one, as a lot of people are. It is very surprising that this came, especially because Diablo has been, you know, in Classic for over a year now already.
Probably
so-
closer to 2.
Probably closer to 2, you think? I mean,
Yeah.
the guys that I talked with at last BlizzCon and were working on Diablo were Classic guys. At
Mhm.
least at that point, it was already in Classic's hands.
Yeah.
So I really didn't expect new sets. Yeah, that does really not sound like a Classic team task. I guess I was wrong on this one. That is a Classic team task.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting new sets and new stuff to play with, which I'm happy. It's literally new content and literally for free, so that's good news. However, I want to shine some light on current issues and things that I want to see changed right now, which are mainly quality of life things. And those are actually important quality of life things, and I'd like to shine some light on those. I think the first and probably one of the biggest ones, especially requested by the high-end community. High-end community means you're pushing for the top 10 of, you know, top 10 ranks essentially. And very often you'll need a very good key for this one. Very good key means you're looking for maybe 3 or 4 different mob sets and maybe 3 or 4 different map layouts. There are, I don't know, 50, 60 different maps in Diablo 3 Rebirthed, maybe even more. And we have 33 different mob sets. It's equally distributed, so whatever, each time you open a map, it's just, you know, you have an equal chance on every combination, and very often you'll want to see something like Festering Swarms, Festering Spear Cursed, Festering Face Beast, or Battlefield's Face Beast, and so on, right? So, you know, looking at a handful of combinations out of multiple thousands. Which means you need to invest a lot of keys to see the one rift that you can actually play, that you believe you would clear. Which means very often, you know, closing a greater rift is cumbersome. You need to hit escape, go to menu, and restart a game. It's probably also not that good for server load overall. Like instance creation is usually kind of expensive in game creation. There are a couple of games which are limiting how many games you can create. I think Diablo 2 has right now a game creation limitation. You can only create like 10 games per hour or something. Other games have the same concept, hence I don't think it's good for Diablo. I think it would be great if we could close Greater Rifts. If you could decide to abandon a Greater Rift and it would just close, you're still in the same game, You don't have to go back to menu and open a new game instance. I think that would be great, both for us players as well as for overall server performance. I'm not sure if it's technically speaking possible at the current state of Diablo, but it's really something that I would like to see and that I want to shed light on. It's very cumbersome for us high-end players that 90% of our game time is just open closing and remaking games till we get the one with it we can play, and then we actually play it.
Yeah.
So that is in an 8-hour stream of pushing, I maybe play 1 hour of actual gameplay when I do push to the highest of my character, because I am so picky with what I can play, which is unfortunate. So I'd rather have to speed up the process of rolling a new dice and getting a new map. A lot of people will say, well, isn't it more problem of balance where maps and mobs are not balanced enough so that you could play more? Sure, that's true, but that's more work than allowing us to just reopen a Greater Rift. At least I'd hope so. So for me, closing a Greater Rift within a game instance is a very powerful quality of life change I would like to see. Obviously, this caters the high-end community, which is a very, very small percentage of the overall player base. I do get that one, but I think it's an important thing to say, at least at this point, after years of opening and closing maps. And fishing will not go away, so this is something I'd really like to see.
Well, if they wanted to get rid of fishing, they would have done it multiple years ago when it started being a thing. And to the people who see, people like to, because I think a problem for Diablo 3 from, how can this be phrased properly? I think people like yourself and Leviathan and Blood, like pretty Riker plays, but he's not high end, but like Blood tends to push, you push a lot, Leviathan definitely pushes. When you do your pushing and you're going for top 10, basically front page, you're on top 13, essentially. And when people see that and see what you go through, it's almost like they think they can do that through osmosis. It's like they see it, therefore they believe they can do it. It's like they follow a build guide, they get the gear, they do it, and then they're like, why are you fishing? But the whole pyramid of deal is like, first you get to level 70, and then you get the amount of Paragon that's really required. So it's like checkboxing. So you get the 70, you get the gear of the right affixes at the right rarity, and then like you start eliminating those, and then like the only things you have left as a high-end pusher is knowing your pylon mechanics and getting the right mobs on the right levels. Like that's like the last elements of RNG in the game that's preventing you from getting your clear. So that's why fishing happens. That's why fishing as mentality happens. It's because that's the last thing that you as a player, you don't have control over it, but you have say if you're playing that map. Like, this is the right map with the right mobs, I'm playing this one, versus this, it's the right map with the wrong mobs, or the wrong mobs on the right map, I'm not playing this. So that's where the mentality of fishing comes from. It's, this is the last thing I can do to control myself getting this clear, pushing up that one more GR to get rank 1 or rank 2 or rank 3. Because my gear is already maxed, my Paragon is pretty much where it's going to be, the augments are already where they're going to be, I have the rotation down to 95% plus efficiency. This is the last possible thing I can do. So fishing is going to be there, and that's where it comes from. So I feel, if they, like I said, if they're going to get rid of it, they would have gotten rid of it a long time ago. And controlling that with like any way would be nice. And even for just misclicking regular rifts, like, oops, I opened the regular rift instead of a GR. You still have to go clear it. You still have to leave the game, come back out. True. So
I'm one of those experts. That happens quite frequently to
so
me.
even misclicking it would still be nice to help clear out and then restart. So it's not just it's for the high level mistake makers too.
Definitely one of those as well. I've been a couple of 4-man pushes, especially. I don't think it's a huge deal anymore nowadays, where server performance is a big deal. With Bazooka nowadays, there are very few damage calculations happening at the same time. It's usually the 1 or 2, DPS meteors every 32 seconds that you have, one of which is the huge one, and the other one is the small one, which just spawns the Oculus. So there are not really a lot of damage instances happening where we actively DPS with Bazooka. Which makes it a very server-friendly build. Like, the server engineers are very happy that Bazooka exists. That is most certainly the case. If we would play other builds such as Firebat's Wizard, Firebat's Witch Doctor, which it's the spinning Witch Doctor, which is ticking like 12 times per second, and it's proccing area damage, and it really wants to stand in a very high density pool. That's when server calculations ramp up quite a bit, and that's when I feel like server engineers are not really that happy. That's when the server-side engine cannot compute the current frame when it's quantum, which is 16 milliseconds. And that's when the game on the server side just takes up too much computational power. That's when we start lagging. That's when suddenly the game locks in, and your client is still rendering the game continuously, and you can still move and cast spells. Nothing is happening because the server is clocked up and it's still stuck in doing damage calculations from a few frames ago. That's when issues arise, and when people are getting team wiped. So back in the days, you were really scouting for a server that was very low on load and that could handle those kind of computations, where you can make a huge pull and you wouldn't lag out and get team wiped. If in this game you by mistake opened a key, Atomic Drift, and you really don't want to forfeit the server, so you had to do the key run, and then you could go back to pushing. So I did the mistake quite often, where we were fishing for good servers for quite some time, and we finally got a good server, and then I opened by mistake a key, and then it's like, oh, we gotta run this key now because we can't forfeit, so the servers are good. Like, we can make huge pulls here. So that was good times of Season 5. Very enjoyable times. Where getting a good server was actually the hard part. Getting the good map on the good mobs afterwards was at least you had a chance, if you get the good map, to play it and to not get crushed. I mean, those days are essentially over right now, but that's because of Bazooka. If Bazooka is gone at some point and we have to play a new DPS build, we might be back to lagging and crushing servers and getting team wiped. That might actually return. So this is not an issue that is over. It's just something that's not apparent with Bazooka.
It's for another day. But I digress. What else would you like to mention?
Oh yeah, what else is on the quality of life list? Off-class gambling, which is a very popular one that a lot of people want to see, right? So you have a drop-down menu at Kadala and then gamble from a different class point of view. So you can be on your wizard and then you select barbarian and then you gamble from the barbarian point of view, which makes it easier to deck out or gear second or third characters. I think they're called tunes or twerks, I'm not sure. So gearing other characters. You can already gamble class specific offense for obvious reasons. Also by definition class specific. So on your wizard you could gamble the necro offense or quivers, for instance, for the demon hunter, which makes sense, and it would be nice if we would actually get the next tier of off-class gambling, where, for instance, if you gamble gloves, you'll get barb sets on a wizard. If you decide to gamble from the barbarian point of view, I think that's a very obvious one. Quality of life change that a lot of people want to see. Another one is fixing squirts right now, which is not a quality of life change. but it has been a very common request right now. Squid's Necklace has the issue that certain elite affixes abilities and monster abilities are piercing shields. This includes the shield pylon, and they will drop squirts even though there has been no harm done to the character. I think one of the most prominent ones is the frozen elite affix, which will drop your squirts regardless if you took damage or didn't take damage, as long as you got hit and it procced on you. That's when squirts will drop. This includes unact charges, poison from a cursed, fire circle from certain bosses like Eggnox or Mancarver, the poison cloud from Veracity on the first tick, and so on and so on. There are many more, where squirts will just debuff even if you had a shield pile equipped. So it's kind of an issue that I want to see get fixed, and I think those 3 points were essentially my main talking points. So 2 quality of life changes and 1 bug fix is essentially what I wanted to bring to light in this section.
Yeah. And all I can say is thank God that a lot of us asked for buff and debuff icons, because could you imagine squirts without an icon and trying to figure out what the hell is going on?
Why is it so inconsistent? Yeah.
Like why? Like
testing squirts without the buff icon. I think there was also one question that one viewer had this in my channel a couple of weeks ago. I was complaining about squirts. Like I wasn't pushing yet, but I was playing, and right before my cold COE, I jumped into an Oculus and then an elite casted Frozen, and I lost my squirts. And I was right on my main damage moment, right? And I was like
you were about to go Arnold Schwarzenegger, go roar,
yeah,
and then
I'm like, oh man, this elite. I swear, those elites always do it at this point, right? And then the one video was, well, you played PTR. Why didn't you report this? And I said, well, on PTR we did not have an icon. Like on PTR, I could have not told in the situation that squirts dropped. I would have not known. Right, I would have noticed over a long period of time after playing squirts a lot that sometimes it feels like it's dropping because the damage is missing. I mean, doubling damage is 5 tiers of difference. Those are 5 greater of tiers. That is a non-trivial amount. You will feel the difference. Sometimes you will one-shot, one-rotate elites, and sometimes you will just tickle them, right? 5 times 5 tiers difference is significant. So it would have taken me a lot of time to figure out what is happening with squirts without seeing the icon. So, we got the icon after PTR, and not having the icon on PTR actually meant that we didn't notice that it was dropping from Frozen or from other certain affixes that you have to watch out for nowadays. So when I was doing my 131 pushes, I was always trying, like every single time I was engaging in elite, the first thing I checked is, does it have Frozen? And if so, I had to decide if I wanted to try to fight it or not. Also, every single time I had a mob set that had a curse or Anax, I would always play differently. My main incentive always was to keep squirts up and to make sure that I don't get bugged out, right? If I lose squirts because I actually took damage, so I misread the situation, I was in a spot I should have not been, my shields were gone, and I actually got hit. I lost life and I dropped squirts from incoming damage, that's fine to me, because that's just a mechanical mistake. That's just me being bad at the game, right? And it's fine. I will learn from those mistakes over time. So that's just, I'm okay with those instances, but getting bugged out by frozen affixes all the time, that's painful. And hence this talking point.
Yeah, I think when it gets to like these quality of life adjustments, and then we think back to how they like the 1 week PTR, which, they have their legitimate reasons. Diablo 3 is just as much a console game as it is a PC game. So there's the PC version, there's the Xbox version, there's the PlayStation version, and now there's the Switch version. So yes. There's all the... And patches just can't be released on the consoles. They have to be approved, they have to be ready, and you just can't willy-nilly stuff. You basically have to have a date, you have to have the content ready, it has to be approved by each of those vendors, being the consoles, just so you would have that simultaneous release. But I'm wondering, with them saying, okay, it's going to be a new set for each class, that's 7 sets coming in. And that's probably going to be, so that's 7 sets. That's going to be 21 different set bonuses that are going to have to be tested right off the bat. There's going to be the 2, 4, and 6 for each one of those sets. 3 times 7 is 21. And then they said dozens of new legendaries. Now, whether it's old ones being retrofitted for the sets, or new ones coming in for the sets, or new ones in general coming in for support sets, figure every set has usually 3 at minimum specific set items, like legendaries. There can be crossover from one set to another, like elusive ring can be used, multiple can be swapped out. Other items can be swapped out, so it doesn't have to be unique items. But you have to figure there's going to be at least a dozen to 2 dozen new legendary powers that are going to be done just for the new sets. And then if they revamp old ones, so that's going to be a lot of revamped items. There's going to be a lot of new items, and I think I just hope that they give it 2 weeks. Depending on what they do, because I'm on the idea that we're gonna get a PTR for the next season, but it's gonna be be after BlizzCon, because they're gonna show off probably 3 of the sets at BlizzCon. They'll probably I said with
3 sets at BlizzCon. All right.
Because I said with I don't know if it's P-Child, I think it was P-Child we were talking about, and I went like, they're probably gonna have the Barb because they have to show the barbarian love because of the community. They'll probably do the Wizard because if it's Wizard or Necro, even though P-Child came up with the Necromancer because Necromancer DLC money, I'm still on the fence on showing the Wizard because they'll finally have something that has nothing to do with Archon. And like Wizard is the quite essential like spellcasting class, and then I don't know, Demon Hunter or Monk, pick one. Maybe Monk, just so they show something off different, and then the other classes they'll show off the concept, but they'll say it'll come later on down the road. But I feel like they're gonna show us, and then we'll have the demo stations for that. And then maybe Diablo 4 demo stations on top of that. Who knows? But I feel that's going to be a lot of stuff to test. And and depending on how much if they're going to release all the sets at once with the supporting items, I hope they give us at least 2 weeks to make sure everything just works. Get it, like the scaling of everything almost takes a backseat. Just make sure everything functions. And functions correctly, because technically you could say that the season is ruined by these bugs still persisting and not being there, but this season was made artificially, I don't want to say harder or difficult, but it wasn't the best version that it could have been, because you have to worry about like frozen and this and that, and you have to worry about stuff breaking through your shield. I just hope it's a learning lesson for future, like, if we can fix it now, fix it now. Don't wait until the next patch cycle. But then again, it kind of goes to, I'm coming up with solutions and I don't know the development backend, and it could be a lot harder than we make it out to be. But still, it lends to, at the very end of the day, at the last thought is, it just leads to bad caretaking of the game if you're just allowing it to go through and not really mentioning it, and it sets a bad precedent for the future, especially when we know we have a lot more newer things incoming. I'm like, let's just make sure everything works, please. We can worry about how good or bad they are, just make sure it works.
I've also been not a fan of the 1 week PTRs, and I've expressed my feelings about my disagreement with 1 week PTRs quite often on multiple occasions, and I think they got the message, at least from my end. I know they got the message. that I am not happy with 1 week PTRs, and I feel that 1 iteration PTRs are not good enough. That is my personal opinion, and I've shared that one on multiple instances. Yet we still have 1 week PTRs, and I'm very certain there are very good reasons for that one. Multiple people have been asking for longer PTRs, and especially multiple iteration PTRs. I think it would be better for the quality of the game. However, I guess there are certain reasons why they can't or won't do it, and unfortunately, one of those reasons is apparently because it's multi-platform. Like I'm very displeased with this reasoning, not from a developer standpoint of view, but from a community person standpoint of view. I think it's a not good idea to say we can't do longer PTRs because it's multi-platform to a main crowd of PC gamers.
Oh
It's
no!
like, hey, this game was PC only, and then afterwards we had console 1 and console 2, and now we have console 3. And guess what? You guys now have to play broken patches because we can only give you a 1 week PTR because of all the consoles. I think that is not a well-minded reasoning. So if we could get better reasons on why we have 1 week PTRs, I'd be happy. But once again, that's just me.
Yeah.
I'll be very happy, especially for the upcoming large patches. New sets are large patches to me. I'll have to test those very thoroughly, which is definitely a multiple hour session per set. It's nothing you can do quickly, especially mechanical testing of those sets. It takes a lot of time and understanding them. You have to go through the data mine. You have to go through the buffs of the data mine, and you have to understand what everything means. That will take a lot of time, and then we're still in prior to play testing, and then we have to do mechanics testing, multiplayer testing, and after all that stuff has been settled and done, then you check proc testing, such as if it procs error damage, and so on and so on. And once all that is figured out and you know what works and what doesn't work, that's the first time you can actually go into play testing. So there is a long way of testing before you actually get down to playing and creating the free planners and having ideas to play around with. So yeah, it will take quite some time to figure out each set, and I very much hope that we'll get more than 1 week PTRs. Additionally, I know this is a very, very unpopular opinion, but PTR is known to have very bad performance. And one of the reasons is because it has very few servers. All of them are placed in West Coast on the US, so for us Europeans it's terrible to play. And a lot of people are logging in and playing, especially if there's brand new stuff. A lot of people are playing and testing, which is overall a good thing. But the issue is that on the high end, we can't test stuff anymore because we're getting team wiped all the time. I remember the first time testing on Necro Beta, which was invite only, but there was a lot of people that actually were invited. It took us 40 minutes to get to the boss, because every single time we do a pull on 140s, we would just get team wiped because the servers couldn't handle it. Like, we were actually dying our way to the boss, such that we can test a boss killer necromancer build, which ended up to be the Bone Ringer skeleton killer. But it took us 40 minutes to get and to see a boss because we were just dying our way to it, and there was no way to make it faster, because the second we would start DPSing, the server would just essentially die and we would die, and then we would make 1% progression. So it took us a long time to see a boss. And that was kind of painful.
Yeah.
Which makes testing once again very slow. So, if there were to be a way to have better PTR servers, which means less players, or which maybe means only invite a few people, I'd be personally happy. It surely would increase the quality of Fury crafting. However, that's the next thing. I think it's unfair. So it's unfair to obviously say those people have access and let them Fury craft. So kind of have to try to balance things here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, I'm not the fan of privileging a few people. I think that's not the way to go. I think there should always be equality in a community.
Mm-hmm.
But also two very divergent point of views, right? It's for the sake of testing better servers and for the sake of fairness, having everybody there. What can you do? Got to find a good middle way.
Hey, everyone has to get that primal with that 2000% and then go, fuck, it's PTR.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you don't kill rainbow goblins on PTR and get the wings, it's all good. Like, the one guy that I saw on the Battle.net forums who was like, Blizzard, please. I got the rainbow goblin on PTR, and I got the cosmic wings. Can I please get the cosmic wings on live? Should have not gone into the rainbow instance.
It's better to have loved and lost than never to have at all.
Exactly.
It's like, nah, I'm good. I don't need that heartache.
Yeah, it's like every single time on PTR I see a rainbow goblin, I just hit Alt F4, like I'm out. Like, not even killing it.
Yeah.
Getting out of this game.
So, on that note, that bright, shiny rainbow note, we'll end on a positive note. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you again for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
This is great. 30 days till BlizzCon.
30? Wow, we actually did not speak a lot about BlizzCon, right?
I know.
Holy shit.
I
actually didn't really talk about BlizzCon.
Yeah, I was thinking about, but like, we're gonna live it. We're gonna be there.
Yeah, we're gonna live it.
It's gonna be your second. It's gonna be my 7th.
7th BlizzCon, man.
We're just
Alright, so
just gonna live this shit.
As my defense, this Gamescom this year was my 9th, I think. So that's my defense here, it's just the distance. That's why it's only my 2nd BlizzCon. But this year's BlizzCon will be kick-ass. I hope so, at least.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful to be there this year.
Yeah. And like, somehow, some way, even with last year, almost everyone in the Diablo 3 community is going to be there.
Which
Almost.
is very surprising, right?
I know.
Like, considering the mood last year, considering the mentality after the news last year, a lot of people, even like a few people that had streaming slots scheduled, did not stream. They decided not to because they didn't feel in the mood. They didn't want to stream Immortal. So, and a lot of people afterwards also switched games, right? So we had people switching to different games and they are not streaming Diablo anymore. So, it's surprising that still all of them coming back to BlizzCon.
I think everyone just wants to get drunk again. I think when you boil it down, it's like
exactly.
They just want to be around everyone. Just like, sure,
I do agree.
I'll pay $11 for a drink again. Why not? I got money to burn. No.
So we got a couple of new additions this year, right? For instance, from Europe. Not the only one attending from Europe. There's also this year Jesse Rocks will attend. So he's a German streamer, one of the largest German channels. He will attend. He's an Austrian guy, and he'll fly in for BlizzCon, and he'll be there this year. So that's a new attendee. Besides that one, Big Daddy Dan is not coming this year, right? He couldn't make it last year. Can make it this year. He was there 2 years ago. That's about it, right? Else, it feels like everybody's coming.
Yeah.
Do we have official news from Quinn? If Quinn is actually attending?
I would think I watched his stream when he was playing WoW. But he like never brings it up. But I would imagine he's going, because you would think if he said no, he's not going, that would have spread around just as quickly as when the news spread around that he got invited. Because, the internet of things.
Alright, we'll see. We'll see if Quinn comes.
Yeah.
If he'll be there.
And I'm really excited to just like share a drink or two with Muggle and husband. Oh my god.
Oh,
That's gonna be fun.
yes, yes.
That's gonna be fun. She'll get to be everyone's mother. Be like, just like have that tone. Be like, put the drink down. We're like, okay, fine. Now give me the drink. Okay, wait. What? No, my drink.
Well, we'll see. It'll be fun to meet them, definitely.
Yes, definitely. So, with that, let's get on to the outro and all the stuff. Get you to bed.
Get me in bed.
And all that fun stuff. So, first and foremost, again, thank you. Again? Yes, thank you. And where can people find you? Where can people view you, watch you? All those fun wizardy antics that you do.
Yeah, you can find me on twitch.tv/sVr_90. Or I'm tweeting the tweets under the Twitters of at sVr90d3. That's where you can find me. That's why I tweet. I'm not the most regular tweeter. Maybe tweet like privately once a week and maybe like 3 times a week about my stream starting. But if you want to DM me, my DMs are open over there. Otherwise, you can find me on Discord. And yeah, that's about it. That's where you can find me.
Alrighty. So, with that, if you would like to reach out to the show, you can visit the website at scytheandshield.com. If you would like to email the show, questions, comments, concerns, feedback, good chili recipes, whatever, scytheandshield@gmail.com. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, that would be at scytheandshield. Notice a trend, people. If you would like to listen to the show, you can listen to it on the website or on YouTube, Apple, Google, and Spotify. And most importantly, join the Discord. Go to the link through the website, because this jumbled bunch of letters and gobbledygook that you probably won't be able to tell through my voice. And that's where you can suggest future guests for the show, suggest future questions for those guests, and if I pick your question, I will give you a shout out on the show. And overall, thank you for listening. Look forward to the next one. BlizzCon 30 days. Live the hype. Be the hype. Keep hacking and slashing, my friends. Have a good night.